This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Welcome to Late Boomers, the podcast where we talk about what's next for all of us navigating the second half of life with curiosity, humor, and heart. I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Every week, we bring you inspiring conversations with people reinventing themselves, finding purpose, and providing information and proving that it's never too late to grow, to change, or to tell your story.
Speaking of stories, today's guest knows a lot about how to tell them. He's a former CNN senior copy editor for The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, a journalist, a novelist, and a writing coach who helps others find their voice and their confidence on the page. His name is John DeDakis.
And John's career is really fascinating. He's covered politics, world events, and breaking news at the highest levels. But he's also made a powerful midlife transition from hard news to fiction writing. And he's the author of the Lark Chadwick mystery-suspense series, and he teaches writing workshops across the country.
And what I love about John's story, Mary, is that it's one of resilience and reinvention. After a long and demanding journalism career, he found a whole new career, and he still uses his storytelling skills, but in a totally different way.
And that's something so many of us late boomers can relate to. The idea that the skills we've built over decades can transform into something new and exciting and meaningful into our next chapters.
Plus, John's also passionate about mentoring younger journalists and writers. He's been teaching at American University and doing writing retreats and coaching, helping others navigate the art and sometimes the agony of writing a book.
I laugh because, I'm working on one myself, but we're going to talk to him about how he made that leap and how his experience in news influences his fiction and what advice he has for anyone who's ever thought, I've got a story inside me, but I just don't know where to start.
So grab your coffee or your notebook and join us for the conversation with the very inspiring John DeDakis.
Welcome, John. We're so happy to have you on Late Boomers.
Thank you very much, Mary and Cathy. It's good to be here.
Well, John, you had a long
I do need to correct the record on one thing. I'm no longer at American University. I taught there for about 2 semesters a long time ago, and I also taught at the University of Maryland, College Park, journalism. But that was almost another life.
So you're concentrating full time on your fiction.
Right.
Excellent. Well, you've had a long and successful career also at CNN. And before that, you were a journalist in radio and print. So what made you decide to transition to writing novels? And when did you know it was time?
I knew it was time when CNN made me an editor. I had been a reporter before I got to CNN. I came to CNN in 1988 as a writer, and probably within a year they made me an editor, which is tedious. It's fault finding, and I needed a creative outlet, and that's when I started to play around with fiction. But it took 10 years to get the agent that I've got, and the manuscript went through 14 major revisions, and she's the 39th agent that I queried. So I tell my writing students, if you take good notes, I'll save you 9 years in the process.
I understand that.
Wow. Yeah,
And
excellent advice.
yeah, really. Your Lark Chadwick series features a young female journalist as the protagonist. What inspired you to write from that perspective, and how much of her is in you?
It wasn't a calculated thing. It was one of those serendipitous points where when I started writing, someone suggested that I should write in a way that stretches who I am. Never been a woman, at least not in this life. So I gave it a try. And what I discovered is that emotions are not gender specific. We all have the exact same emotions. It's just that the women in my life tend to be more willing to share their emotions, and they're more articulate about the emotions they share. So I just found women fascinating. And I was at CNN for 25 years. So that's
Mm,
25 years worth of young women in their early to mid 20s who'd let me ask them questions about what it's like to be a woman. And then many of these women became beta readers for me to give me feedback on
Oh,
whether what I was doing was working or not.
mm,
that's
yeah,
fabulous. You had
it's
such a
very
resource.
interesting.
Yeah. How did your years in news covering real world stories and breaking events shape your approach to fiction and storytelling?
Well, you draw from personal experience, and we all have that reservoir of creativity in us. One of the things that I think journalism was really good at helping me to become a novelist is that, in journalism, you only have a certain amount of real estate or time. And so you have to write fast, you have to be efficient, but more than anything, you have to be clear. Well, you have to be accurate
Hmm.
too, but, especially clear, writing tight. And that's true whether you're writing a 30-second story or an 80,000 word novel.
Hmm.
Every word needs to mean something and be there because it's doing the necessary work.
Mhm. Good,
That's
good
good
point.
coaching.
Yeah. A lot of people in our audience have really dreamed about writing a book, but they feel intimidated by the process. What's the first piece of advice that you would like to give to someone who says, "I want to write, but I don't know how to begin"? Or even
Oh
those
boy.
people who have written a book and they have a second book in their head, but they don't know how to begin.
Well, you said the right word, and that's overwhelming. I mean, I think that that can really cause a
Hmm.
person to freeze because it is overwhelming. And a lot of times, and this may be a common experience, you wake up from a dream or you're in the shower and this idea has just plopped itself in your lap and you write, you just can't wait to get to the computer and you write white hot and then you hit the wall after about 50 pages because you realize, well, I haven't really thought things through clearly enough. And so one suggestion I have is do the spade work, do the prep work, get to know your characters, interview them, try to get a sense of what the story is. If you see a scene in your head, write it down, recreate it, sort of settings and situations, and just do writing exercises. That's one way. Another is go to writing conferences. That's where you'll meet agents, you'll meet other published authors, you'll learn about the craft, you'll learn about the business, take classes. There are ways to get better because it's very
Hmm.
easy to talk yourself out of the process. You read a book and you go, "Oh, I could never do that," and so we take ourselves out of the running prematurely. Because if you have that desire to write, I think you need to fan that ember of creativity and just keep going.
I
Fan
love
that
that.
ember.
Yeah.
Fan that ember. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
And you've been a writing coach and mentor to many. So, what's one of the most common challenges you see when new writers struggle, and how do you help them overcome that?
There's a lot of psychology that's involved in writing, and I think the better you know yourself, the better your writing will be because you'll be coming from a place of authenticity. And
Mm.
one of the things that I encourage people to do, and just about everybody I know has experienced pain and loss and grief, And it doesn't necessarily mean the loss of a loved one. It can be the loss of a pet, a job, a loved one, a relationship, your innocence, all your health. All of those kinds of things can produce, but it can feel isolating. And so my suggestion is mind the pain, because our society tries to anesthetize it. But if you mine it and write it and get it onto the page, whether it's journaling or writing poetry or storytelling or writing music or, whatever your creative outlet is, I think that's a great way to get started. Just go for what you know best, write what you know. That's sort of job one. And I'll say one other thing, because I think another common problem is fear. We're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of not being perfect. And the interesting thing is, and being rejected, all of those fears are going to come true.
Right.
But what you need to do is face those fears. And the interesting thing about fear is that courage is a byproduct of facing your fears. It doesn't just show up magically. You have to actually move toward the fear and go through it. It's harnessing the fear. And that's what I call fear in action. That's courage.
So how would you harness the fear? How did you do it?
You just you recognize what it is you're afraid of, and you realize that, well, it's not like the guys in Normandy storming the beaches on D-Day. Nobody's shooting at you. It's really our emotions can exaggerate, and they can tell us things are going to be awful, and we need to just kind of tell those emotions to shut up, because they exaggerate, and there comes a point. Fear is sort of the common denominator, sort of the fulcrum between cowardice and courage. Both are fear-based. Cowardice is fearful inaction. We know what we should do and we freeze. And there just comes a point where if the desire is strong enough, you just must burst through. And when you go toward the pain and go through it, the byproduct is confidence, and that makes it easier to do the next time. You gain confidence. That's a byproduct.
That's very
Well,
powerful.
I absolutely love the advice to mind the pain.
I do too. I just wrote that down.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Just to dig into that grief that we've all gone through.
Yeah.
God knows we all have something.
Oh man, more than one thing probably.
Yeah, and you know what, on that note, I understand that you yourself have experienced loss and personal tragedy, and you've written about it with that courage and with honesty. So talk about, if you would, how that experience shaped your writing and your characters and your teaching.
Sure. The first experience was when I was 9 years old, and I witnessed a car-train collision that killed 3 people, including a kid my age. And that's stunning when you're facing your mortality at that young age. Fast forward a few years, and my sister took her life in 1980 of carbon monoxide poisoning. I was on the scene that day. And so when it came time to actually writing fiction, I brought those two experiences together because I know that pain. And so I just mined it and I went for it. And you know what? It really didn't particularly involve courage. And I'm not sure I understand why, but it just seemed like the natural thing. This was, for lack of a better word, good story stuff. And I think maybe one of the reasons I was able to do it is that when you're doing fiction, you're a tad removed. You're taking a step back. You're not necessarily writing your story. You're drawing from personal experience, but you're putting it into the lives of people who aren't really you. You're creating characters. And so that you're a bit more detached from it. And I think that might be one of the things that enabled me to see it through.
Interesting way to work through your trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it into fiction. It's really interesting. Yeah. And you've reinvented yourself after a major career.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who think it's too late
Oh,
to
man.
try something new in their 50s or 60s or beyond. We're
Oh,
talking
man.
to boomers all the time, and we talk to people that reinvent themselves all the time.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
what do you
maybe
say to them?
I think part of it may be our generation. I mean, I don't know if it's the greatest generation, but I mean, we were forged in the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
The women's movement. There was a lot of major change that was going on
Yeah.
in the country in the late '60s and early '70s, and many of us were on the forefront of that, and so that's sort of baked into us, and so. I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, I retired from CNN in 2013, but I didn't really retire. It's like I can't not keep going. And it's not like it's work. I have a purpose. My life has meaning. And I think that if you approach life that way and approach it with a sense of curiosity, and a sense of if I can horribly simplify it, it's finding what you're good at and what you love. And when you put those two things together, you've really got some purpose and propulsion going forward. It's as valid when you're 65 or when you're 15. The same principles apply. I'm living as if I've got another 25 years. No guarantees, but if it
Yeah.
happens, I want to be there because we spend most of our lives regretting the past and fearing the future, and we're no good in the moment. And that's the only place where we can really make a difference is in the moment.
That's so true.
Such
Boy,
super advice. I love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you probably have imparted that to your students. I know you've taught at universities, as you mentioned, and you continue to lead workshops around the world, right?
That's right.
And
Yep.
I'd love to know a little bit about that, but also what you've learned from your students and workshop participants over the years.
Well, I have learned a lot from my students, and that keeps you young. Um, I teach a class on how to write a memoir, and one of the students was keeping a journal when his wife died. And so years later, he was writing the story, and he told me he went back to look at his journal, and he said, I'd forgotten how angry I was at the time. The act of writing it down siphoned off those emotions, potentially toxic emotions, so that he could move on and move forward with his life. And so that was a lesson that I learned from one of my students. And there are a bunch of them. So yeah, there was two parts to your question, and I forgot the other part. I'm getting
Um,
old,
well, talking about your workshops around the world and where
right?
you go,
And
what you do there, and
yeah, I teach at writing centers, and a lot of these are now online classes. I go to writers' conferences and teach and speak there. And I'm right now at a point where I'm a one-on-one writing coach, a manuscript editor, all those hats I wear. And now I'm at a point where I'm taking my writing and my teaching and speaking to a wider audience. I'm trying
I
to
was going
teach.
to ask you if you do it online.
I do a lot of this is online, but
Hmm.
I'm also looking to speak to corporations that have wellness programs to
what would you
help
tell
them
them?
help. Well, I would tell them that unresolved grief is a major problem in a corporation. It leads to low morale, absenteeism, high turnover,
Hmm.
and I am able to inspire people, whether it's a CEO or the rank and file, on how to use writing as a way to heal from grief. It's
Mm.
therapeutic. And that's one of the things that I'm now seeking to do on a wider level.
That's so interesting to be branching out like that. Here
Yeah.
you are starting another new thing.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm crazy, but what does
It's
she
per-
know?
it's perfect for our listeners. It's a perfect idea. And can you
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about your current projects, which you were just starting to do,
Yeah.
and what's next for you and for Lark Chadwick?
Well, what's next for Lark? My wife and I actually wrote book 6, Enemies Domestic, together. Usually I plot them out, but I never plot them as carefully as I expect. And so I have to do a lot of seat of the pants writing just to kind of fill in the gaps. But with Enemies Domestic, my protagonist, Lark Chadwick, is White House press secretary. She's pregnant. The dad's dead. She's ambivalent about becoming a single mom. Abortion is a crime. And the first question she's asked on her first day on the job in the daily briefing comes from a Tucker Carlson type who asks, "Are you or are you not planning to abort your unborn child?" And that just puts Lark in the middle of this highly toxic and polarized political fishbowl at a time when a dictator becomes president. It could never happen, but
Oh,
and
yikes.
so we got the idea. Cindy and I have coffee every morning. We read Heather Cox Richardson and read the paper. And Cindy said, "You need to write about this when the abortion decision was overturned." And, over the year, we've been married 47 years. We've had a lot of intense conversations about abortion, and I've been all over on the issue. I've been a reporter covering it. And so the process was, we came up with the idea. I would come down here and write, sort of, you face the blank screen, that's despair. I would write it. I'd get my characters talking to each other, and I'd feel really good about it. Take it back upstairs to Cindy. She'd look, and then we're back at despair again. And that was the circle. That was the circle of life. But
Is she your editor?
She was my editor. She really helped me think through things and helped get Lark out of a lot of problems. But she was in the very beginning. My first novel 20 years ago, it was this 150,000 word mishmash after the first draft. And she read it. She was supportive, and she underlined one word and said, "You sure you want to use that word?" Which is great, but what about the other 149,000 other words, And she said, "I didn't know if you were any good. I didn't want to break your spirit." So now she's earned the right to be heard, and she's very confident and gives me really good feedback. So we're doing that same process for book 7. We're not too far into it. It's on the back burner right now because I've got a lot of other irons in the fire. Plus, I've got procrastination nailed, which is part of the process.
Those.
Yeah.
Do the laundry first.
Yeah, exactly. You can rearrange your sock drawer. It's a high priority.
Exactly. Yeah. Is this your writing process, though? You get up in the morning, you have your coffee, you go downstairs to your studio.
It.
And do you outline everything? You were talking about being seat of the pants a bit.
No, not so much anymore. I do a little bit. I like to know kind of what the story's going to be and where I'm going to go, but I like to be open to the serendipity of letting the characters kind of decide for me what's going to happen, because I think good plotting emerges from the characters. You asked me what I learned from my students. There was one student who said, she said, "I've been writing political thrillers and I keep quitting after about 50 pages because I'm bored." She said, "I just figured it out after taking your class." She said, "I realized that I've been imposing plot onto the characters instead of having the plot emerge from the characters." And when you think about it, that's how we live life. It's cause and effect. We're just minding our own business. Something happens and we react to it. And our reaction causes someone else to react, and so on down the pike. That's the way we live life. That's the way we tell stories.
Yeah.
Great advice for anyone living life and anyone who wants to tell a story.
There you go.
So, John, tell our listeners where they can find your books and how to join your workshops, and a little bit more about your coaching and writing retreats.
Well, thank you. Best place to go is sort of one-stop shopping, and that's my website, which is my name.com, JohnDeDakis.com, JOHN, D as in dog E, D as in dog A, KIS as in Sam, JohnDeDakis.com. You've got thumbnails of my books. You've got a look at my upcoming events, which include a lot of online writing classes. The speaking that I do, the writing workshops that I do, the coaching that I do, and especially that's how you'll be able to send me an email, is through my website.
And what's the nature of the memoir class, if I can ask? I'm just very
It's
interested in that.
it's basically just got suggestions on how you can capture your story, and how you can, stay organized, how you can decide what the story is going to be.
How many
Trying to look at
sessions?
the all the moving parts. It's a standalone. I can do that as a
Oh,
standalone. Um, it just depends. And I also do, I do week-long classes or multi-week classes. It just depends.
And your retreats?
I don't host retreats, but I usually am involved with retreats. It just depends on who the sponsor is. Every year I teach for a week at the Chautauqua Institution in southwestern New York State. 2 hours every morning for 5 days. So
mhm.
there are a lot of different ways that I meet people.
And
Well,
then
it keeps
how
your
are your fiction classes different from memoir?
In many ways, there's an overlap because the skill sets and the moving parts are pretty much the same. It's just that the main difference is that one is nonfiction and the other is creative. So the biggest difference is learning to tap into your creativity and make things up, as opposed to in nonfiction and memoir writing, it's just a matter of extracting those things that actually happened and deciding which are the things that are most important and deciding on a theme that will help capture your story and engage a reader.
And then I have to ask you, a lot of writers say, "Oh, it comes to me from the universe and I just write it down." Does that happen to you?
It
And do you
does.
have to meditate first, or how do you call on
It's
that
not,
spirit?
I do call it the spooky power of the subconscious. And one of the things that I do in my
mhm.
writing classes is I'll give an assignment. I'll say, I want you to interview one of your characters to get to know them. And this deer in the headlights, reaction is, I don't even have a book. What are you talking about? And I'm saying, this is a job interview. And I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And you are going to ask your potential character, who are you and why do you want to be in my book? And
Mm.
just write. Listen to the voice that shows up, because when you ask those questions, that stirs things up. Writing is like dipping a straw into your subconscious. And when you stir up those questions, the act of writing is like taking a sip, and it comes through your subconscious and through your fingers and onto the page. And it's spooky. And the goal here is just to get it down on paper. You're not writing to be clear or fancy or writerly. And at the end of that 10 minutes, which is either the longest or the shortest 10 minutes of your life, more often than not, people are stunned that something shows up. And it's as simple as that, because there is so much in you already. It's just a matter of tapping into that reservoir of creativity.
I want to take your class.
Yes, you do.
That's I do too. That's so interesting because I haven't heard it expressed quite like that before. We've interviewed a lot of writers, and I think you're being so much more clear about it
Thank
and
you.
where the inspiration comes in from.
Thank
And
you.
also very kind, which is
Oh,
important.
thank you.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who take classes and their teachers, shall I say, are very critical, but not kind. And you seem to have that kindness
Thank
about
you.
you.
That's so nice. I at CNN. There were a couple of editors I worked with who were not kind, and
Mm,
so part of that is you learn. I'm not going to do it that way. And I've discovered you can say what you mean without being mean when you say it, and that's really the goal. It's not criticism. Doesn't necessarily mean you suck as a person. It just means you can do better.
yeah.
Good way
Yeah.
to put it.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. Your
Thank you.
story reminds us that the creative spark doesn't fade, it just evolves.
That's so true. And you've shown us how experience and wisdom and kindness can fuel new kinds of storytelling, and how reinvention can be both brave and joyful.
To our listeners, check out John's website, as he said, at johndedakis.com. for his books and workshops and upcoming events.
And if you've ever dreamed of writing your own story, maybe this is the time to start.
Yeah, we're Cathy Worthington and Mary Elkins, and this has been Late Boomers. Thank you so much for listening.
And be sure to subscribe, share, and join us next week for another inspiring conversation about what comes next. See you soon.
Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John.
Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.us. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.